Use it if you do not wish to be hit, or if you are facing many opponents with blasters. With a lightsaber blade and enough skill in deflection, it is an excellent defense against blasters, but in other situations, it merely delays the inevitable.
Greetings. Welcome to the very first Exchange Corporation Holocron. My name is Slytime. I'm a visual effects producer, a video game streamer, and a lover of Star Wars. I'm also the guild leader of the Bumani Exchange Corporation on Starforge. I started playing Star Wars The Old Republic 10 years ago during 2.0 on Jung Ma, the PvP RP server. I currently main Taldan Baruch, a Guardian Assassin on Impside, formerly the Guardian Taldan Dawn Striker, aka Ashla Baruch Pubside. I learned to tank and Guardian from the Knights of Sokon, trained by Jedi Master Hado in Warzones and World PvP. This is a PvP guide for tanking on Jedi Guardian only. I am by no means an expert of PvP, but a passionate fan of the game, looking to share knowledge learned from 10 years of playing, mostly regs, hoping to inspire others to play more and to get more into ranked myself because I love tanking and I want to keep improving. With that in mind, I'll do a brief overview. We'll be talking about the philosophy and lore, the equipment, the abilities, an in-depth look at the application via duels, 8v8 war zones, death matches, and finally a recap. Thank you so much for joining. Let's dive in.
Soresu, the way of the Mynock, or the resilience form, is the third of the 7 lightsaber forms and the most defensive. It was created due to the development of blasters in the galaxy, employing tight controlled movements and focusing on a strict economy of action, as the slightest overextension risks leaving an opening for blaster bolt, vibroblade, or lightsaber to slip through. This mentality plays a larger role in the overall view a Soresu practitioner should take in battle. Seeking to stay calm, tranquil, and in control, taking time to assess the patterns of the battle and adapt, always looking for openings or opportunities to strike. Like our Mynock surviving on nothing but power cables in space, a master Soresu practitioner will outlast an opponent and thrive in even the most harsh environments. Even still, the weaknesses of a purely defensive form are undeniable in the face of overwhelming force or aggression. To that extent, we'll explore the purely defensive side of Soresu and its application in combat.
Let's talk about equipment. We're using 328 mods in adaptable gear for a 328 item rating. If you don't know how to unlock these mods, watch the 328 gearing guide that we put out. We are using a 2100 Alacrity build for the 1.4 second global cooldown. This is helpful for guard swap. There are 3 major builds that we're looking at. The Skank Tank, where we'll be dropping all defensive stats for power crit, running Champion's Precision and Fearless Victor packages, running crit and power relics, running damage boost skills in the ability tree, and running Leviathan's Hide for damage reduction as our tactical. For crit tank, we'll be looking at dropping Shield and Absorb for crit, running Champion Precision and Force Resistive packages, running crit and reactive relics, running cooldown on crit in skill tree, and easy to stack Leviathan's Hide because cooldown on Guardian Slash and Threatening Focus is low from frequent crits. So ultimately we will explore that build in a future guide. However, there is information here on how to build that in the ability tree section as well. The build we will be focusing on is the Mit Tank, which we have here. This is giving us 400,000 health, 46% flat damage reduction, 20% chance for defense, 35% shield chance, and 30% shield absorption. We're taking the Resistive Hilt 99, the Resistive Armoring 99, and the Warding Mods 99B. We'll be using all of the defensive mods. In addition, we'll be taking the 4 Nimble, 2 Steadfast, and 1 Vigilant Enhancement 95s. So that's the Alacrity, the Shield, and the Absorption. In addition, we'll be taking 4 Redoubt, 5 Absorb, 5 Shield, 74 Augments. Redoubt will be giving us defense. Obviously, Absorb will be giving us Absorb, and of course, Shield will be giving us Shield. We also have the Force Resistive and the Retaliator package. Force Resistive package giving us 3% increase to damage reduction for internal, kinetic, and energy and elemental. Retaliator package giving Riposte no cooldown. So those are the two implants that we'll be taking. We are also taking the Reactive Warding and the Imperiling Serenity Relics. And we're taking Grit Teeth as our tactical here. This is going to be combined with the damage reduction skills in our skill tree for a mid-tank build. Also, we're using the Advanced Chiroprax Fortitude Stim for additional endurance and defense rating. Before we look at the individual abilities within the ability tree, let's first look at how to see the cooldown timers for the abilities. To set this up, we're going to go into Preferences, User Interface. We'll scroll down to the cooldown settings, and here we'll check Show Cooldown Text. And then we can also adjust the text size and the tenths of a second. This is going to be very useful for us because it's going to be helpful for communicating when our cooldowns will be back up to our teammates. So if we pop a defensive, we can see how long we have until that defensive comes back. In addition, it's also helpful for judging how much time we have until our next cooldown comes back on certain abilities, so we can tell how long it's going to take before an ability has come back. So this is a helpful piece of information to have for ourselves as a tank and just in general. So this is a good thing to set up before we go into combat. Let's talk about the ability tree. At level 23, we have Marked Assault. This is a passive. Warding Strike deals 50% more damage to taunted targets. This is good for a damage-based skank tank build if used with other damage-boosting abilities. This will be explored in a future skank tank guide. We have Antagonizing Assault. This is a passive. Increases the damage, critical hit chance, and threat of Warding Strike by 20%. This could be good for a crit tank build utilizing Leviathan's Hide. This will be explored in the next jug tanking guide. Last, we have Defensive Assault. This is a passive. Warding Strike increases your damage reduction by an additional 2% when it deals damage. We will be taking this for the extra damage reduction on this build. There's also the granted passive at level 23, Dust Storm. Targets damaged by your Force Sweep and Cyclone Slash become unsteady. Unsteady targets have their melee and ranged accuracy decreased by 5% for 45 seconds. In addition, damage dealt by Blade Storm is increased by 40%. At level 27, we have Debilitating Slashes. This is a passive. Blade Barrage immobilizes the target for 3 seconds and generates 1 focus. This is not going to be worth taking for this build. It is worth mentioning, though, that the root from this does not build Resolve. We have Cyclone Slash. This is an instant. It costs 2 focus. This slashes up to 8 enemies within 5 meters in front of you for 6,411 weapon damage and inflicts the target with trauma, which reduces the healing received from all sources by 20% for 6 seconds. We will definitely be taking this on this build. This is super important for us as we always want to be applying trauma to reduce heals. That is a big role of ours as a tank. Last, we have Blade Burst. This is a passive. Blade Storm does damage to additional enemies in a cone in front and slows them by 50% for 6 seconds. This is not going to be worth sacrificing the trauma from Cyclone Slash to take the 50% slow. However, it could be coupled with other abilities to do kind of a slow tank build. So that is something else that could be looked at if you coupled it with Purifying Sweep from level 73. We'll talk about that again at level 73. Next, at level 35, we have the granted passive Lunge. Riposte consumes 1 less focus and no longer causes a global cooldown. In addition, melee and ranged defense is increased by 3%. At level 39, we have Crushing Mark. This is a passive. Guardian Slash deals 50% more damage to taunted targets. This could be stacked with Marked Assault from level 23 if you want to focus on dealing damage to taunted targets. Guardian Focus. This is a passive. Dealing damage with Guardian Slash while Warding Strike is active grants a barrier of protection to up to 8 allies within 10 meters for 6 seconds. This is going to be what we'll take on this build, as it gives our allies extra defense when we use Warding Strike before Guardian Slash. And Critical Slash. This is a passive. Guardian Slash critical chance and threat generated is increased by 20%, and its cooldown is reduced by 1 second each time it critically hits. This could be stacked with Antagonizing Assault from level 23 and Leviathan's Hide for a crit tank build. This will be explored in a future Jug Tank guide. Marked Focus. This is a passive. Dealing direct damage to taunted targets generates 1 focus and heals you for 1% of your maximum health. This effect can occur once every second. This healing effect is only described on the Jedi Guardian side, however it does apply to both Jedi Guardian and Sith Juggernaut. You do get the healing effect from the Sith Juggernaut side of this. It is worth noting that we will be taking this on the MIT tank build that we are testing in this guide, as we test out the benefits and capabilities of the passive heal, stacked with the Grit Teeth tactical. The idea here is to just keep surviving and applying trauma until the enemy team is down, so having a heal whenever we attack taunted enemies, which is almost always, is a great benefit to this goal. Next we have Thwart. This is a passive. Guardian Leap grants Thwart, increasing the damage dealt by your next melee ability by 20%. This effect lasts for 10 seconds. Additionally, reduces the cooldown of Guardian Leap by 5 seconds, and reduces the threat and damage taken by an additional 10% each for the friendly target of Guardian Leap. This could be good on a damage-based build if you are focusing on getting the max damage stats. You can couple this with Crushing Mark and Marked Assault to get the 70% damage boost on Warding Strike or Crushing Blow if attacking taunted targets after Guardian Leaping to an ally. Next we have Critical Defense. This is a passive. Critically hitting with a direct attack reduces the cooldown of your Threatening Focus by 1 second. Threatening Focus purges movement impairing effects and increases your melee and ranged defense chance by 10% for 10 seconds. This can be stacked with Critical Slash from level 39 and Antagonizing Assault from level 23 and Leviathan's Hide for a crit tank build. This will be explored in a future Jug Tank guide. There is also the granted passive at level 43, Expeditious Protector. This increases the armor rating by 15% when your guarded target is attacked. Your movement speed is increased by 30% for 6 seconds. At level 51, we have Unyielding Justice. This is a passive. Increases the range of Blade Storm to 30 meters, but Blade Storm deals reduced damage beyond 10 meters. Additionally, Force Push deals 20% more damage and grants Unyielding Justice, allowing your next Blade Storm to deal full damage regardless of the distance from the target. This is an interesting ability, but not as effective as having the reduced cooldown from Force Leap, which is also in this tree. Next we have Defiance. This is a passive. You generate 4 focus when stunned, immobilized, put to sleep, or knocked around. I've never really had an issue with focus or resources on a tank, so I will not be tanking this, but it does give you a lot of resource. Last, we have Battlefield Command. This is a passive. Getting attacked reduces the active cooldown of Force Leap by 1 second. This effect cannot occur more than once every 1.5 seconds. This is great to take, as Force Leap is an interrupt, so having that more frequently is very useful as a tank. The granted passive at level 51 is Blade Barrier. Activating Blade Storm grants Blade Barrier, which absorbs 9,448 damage. Lasts up to 10 seconds. Riposte raises a Blade Barricade, increasing your defense chance by 5% for 10 seconds. At level 60, we have the granted passive, Abating Defense. Increases shield chance by 4% and reduces the cooldown of Saber Ward by 30 seconds. At level 64, we have Stalwart Defense. This is a passive. All damage is reduced by 30% when stunned. We will be taking this, as an additional 30% damage reduction when stunned is extremely powerful on a mitigation tank with already high damage reduction. Next we have War Master. This is a passive. Force Leap grants Unremitting. granting immunity to movement impairing effects and effects that push or pull you around for 4 seconds. In addition, Force Leap enables your next dispatch or whirling blade to be used against a target with any percentage of health. This is often taken on a Skank Tank build and on damage specs, as 4-second push-pull root immunity is very powerful on damage-dealing Jug, as still with the mid-tank build, the 30% damage reduction when stunned is going to be more important for our cause. Unless we have Second Wind, this reduces the cooldown of Resolute by 30 seconds and causes Resolute to heal you for 10% of your maximum health when used. 30 seconds off your break free and an extra heal on 10% max health doesn't compare to the 30% damage reduction when stunned, because you're stunned all the time, and that works the entire time you're stunned with no cooldown. At level 68, we have Awe. This is an instant. It has a 1-minute cooldown. It confounds up to 8 nearby enemies, preventing all action for up to 6 seconds. Damage ends the effect prematurely. In addition, targets affected by Awe deal 15% less melee and range damage for 10 seconds after the confounding effect ends. Targets immune to the confounding effect will immediately suffer from this damage-reducing effect. It's very important for us to take this as a mid-tank, or for tanking in general. Being able to stun up to 8 enemies while reducing their white damage by 15% for 10 seconds is huge for your team, especially in a 1-minute cooldown. This effectively gives you 4 options for crowd control. Next we have Saber Reflect. This is an instant, has a 1-minute cooldown, reflects all direct single target ranged force and tech attacks back at the attacker for 5 seconds. The damage done by Reflect is capped. In addition, Saber Reflect generates a high amount of threat on all engaged enemies within 30 meters when active. While this is my personal favorite ability in terms of animation and the actual effect that it has, I think it's the coolest one in the game, this is not going to be very viable compared to the group stun. And last here, we have Blade Blitz. This is an instant. It has a 35-second cooldown. Quickly rush forward 20 meters, dealing 9,714 weapon damage to enemies in your path and increasing your defense chance by 100% while blitzing. Can be used while immobilized and purges movement impairing effects when activated. Great ability for DPS, but not viable for the mid-tank build compared to the group crowd control. We also have the granted passive Courage. Parrying, deflecting, shielding, or resisting an attack has a 50% chance to grant Courage, reducing the focus consumed by your next Blade Storm or Dispatch by 1. Lasts up to 12 seconds and stacks up to 3 times. Level 73, we have Purifying Sweep. This is a passive. For the defense discipline, Force Sweep slows the targets it damages by 60% for 10 seconds. There's no real use for us here. We don't really need a slow, but again, it could be coupled with Blade Bursts from level 27 to give you kind of an infinite loop of slow. I think there's about a second or a second and a half of cooldown between them, so you basically get a chain slow if you do that build. Next we have Gather Strength. This is a passive. Whenever your movement is impaired, you gain a 10% damage bonus to your next ability that consumes focus. This lasts 15 seconds. It's good for DPS perhaps, but not very useful for tanking. Last we have Through Peace. This is a passive, reduces the cooldown of focus defense by 30 seconds. This is critical for us to take, as focus defense at 1 minute and 30 seconds means we can likely survive until a second focus defense comes back up. And that being our biggest heal, very, very important for us to take as a mid-tank. And we have the granted passive at level 73, Inner Peace. This increases the duration of a Nur by 10 seconds, increases the elemental and internal damage reduction by 5%. And last, at level 78, we get Defensive Swings. The granted passive, dealing damage with Blade Barrage, increases your defense chance by 2%, stacks up to 3 times, and lasts for 6 seconds. This means that Blade Barrage, if dealing the full amount of damage, gives us up to 6% extra defense chance for 6 seconds. The first rotation to talk about is the SOCON rotation. This is Force Leap or Force Charge into Force Push, which resets Force Leap, into Leap/Charge, into Stun. This can be either Force Stasis or Choke, or Hilt Bash/Backhand. Together it's a total of 10 seconds of immobilization. It's an effective way to lock somebody down. It will fill up somebody's white bar. They have to have no resolve for this to work. Next, let's look at the core rotation. This is Taunt, or Challenging Call/Threatening Scream, into Threatening Focus or Threatening Rage. into Warding Strike or Aegis Assault, into Guardian Slash or Crushing Blow, into Riposte or Retaliation, into Blade Storm or Force Scream, into Blaze Barrage or Ravage. This does the following. Taunt plus Threatening Focus reduces the damage taunted enemies deal to allies by 30% for 6 seconds. It damages all taunted targets around you and gives 6 focus. It also lowers the cooldown on taunts by 5 seconds. Warding Strike plus Guardian Slash plus Riposte gives 5% damage reduction with this build for 20 seconds, increases shield absorption by 3% for 20 seconds. Using Warding Strike first allows Guardian Slash to damage up to 8 nearby enemies for full damage. Causes damaged enemies to deal 5% less damage with force and tech attacks. Grants a barrier of protection to up to 8 allies within 10 meters for 6 seconds. Enables Riposte, which increases defense chance by 5% for 10 seconds. Deals 8,666 weapon damage. Can't be parried, dodged, or miss. Blade Storm plus Blade Barrage. If Blade Storm is glowing, it costs nothing. Absorbs 6,435 damage for 10 seconds. And increases defense chance by 6% for 6 seconds. Next, let's talk about fillers. First, Cyclone Slash or Sweeping Slash or Slash/Vicious Slash, applying trauma every 5 to 6 seconds. Cyclone Slash will also make enemies unsteady, reduces melee ranged accuracy by 5% for 45 seconds. Cyclone Slash is a top priority to keep trauma up on the enemy team. We want to keep that 20% heal reduction applied to the enemy team as much as possible. So 5 to 6 seconds, make sure that they don't get a chance to have a gap where they don't have trauma on them. Blade Barrage/Ravage is an extra 6% defense chance to self for 6 seconds. Taunt is a single target, has 15-second base cooldown. Challenging Call or Threatening Scream has a 45-second base cooldown. It reduces the target damage to anyone but you by 30% for 6 seconds. Prioritize using taunts before Threatening Focus, as Threatening Focus reduces cooldown of both taunts by 5 seconds. Taunting is top priority as a tank. Single target cooldown is low, group cooldown is higher. The single target taunt cooldown is low enough that you can use it every 2 Cyclone Slashes. Next we have Force Sweep or Smash, reduces melee and ranged accuracy by 5% for 45 seconds. Worth noting, Cyclone Slash also does this, but they do not stack. Cyclone Slash is only a cone in front of you, whereas Smash is true AoE all around you, so it has a larger range. Riposte or Retaliation doesn't miss, can be used when it's up after priority, increases defense chance by 5% for 10 seconds, it has no cooldown. Blade Storm, Force Scream, grants Blade Barrier, absorbs 6,435 damage, lasts for 10 seconds. Use when glowing, and it costs nothing. Has a base 12-second cooldown, so you can almost always have an absorb shield up with that. Let's talk about the defensive cooldowns, or DcDs. First we have a Saber Ward. This is good for Initiate, the first DcD to pop, to take the first incoming damage while we're taking the Grit Teeth Tactical. This increases melee and range defenses by 50%, that's white damage, and absorbs 25% of damage from force and tech attacks, that's yellow damage, for 12 seconds. Also, 100% ranged and melee defenses, white damage, for the first 2 seconds from tank passive Blade Turning, granted at level 23. Endure Pain cleanses all removable effects. This will cleanse dots and roots. Temporarily increases max health by 30% for 20 seconds, aka false health. You want to use this with your med pack because your med pack heals you based on your maximum health, and this is increasing your max health by 30%. Use before Group Taunt and Guardian Slash for extra heal for marked focus with this build. Next we have Warding Call or Invincible. This reduces all damage taken by 40% for 10 seconds. This includes yellow damage. This damage reduction effect stacks with the utility Stalwart Defense, the plus 30% damage reduction, giving you a total of 70% damage reduction between these two if it's up while you're stunned. It has a 2 minute and 30 second cooldown, which means that you have to survive 2 minutes and 20 seconds without your biggest resistance to yellow damage if you're not taking the Leviathan's Hide Tactical. Focus Defense or Enraged Defense, aka ED for Jugside name Enraged Defense, grants 12 charges for 15 seconds. Taking damage consumes a charge to heal for 20,122 health. Can be used while stunned or controlled. Cannot be used above 70% health. You want to use this with the Warzone Adrenal. This will give you a 15% damage reduction while you're healing. So you'll pop your Enraged Defense or your Focus Defense, and then you'll go ahead and pop your Warzone Adrenal. That's the red Adrenal right after, and that gives you a little damage reduction while you're healing up so you don't get killed through your heal, which has happened to me plenty of times. And we also do have the Relic of Imperiling Serenity. This increases defense rating by 2,314 for 30 seconds. It is good to deal with white damage, so if you notice you're taking a lot of white damage, like Carnage Marauder or something like that, really hitting you, or you're going in and just taking a lot of the melee and range damage off the bat, that's a good time to pop that Relic of Imperiling Serenity. Also worth noting that you can pop that after the first 2 seconds of Saber Ward. So you can pop the Relic after the first 2 seconds of Saber Ward and keep your ranged and melee defenses up around 100% for the duration of Saber Ward if the Relic is popped at the same time. Hyper effective for white damage, but it does nothing for yellow damage. Next, let's talk about crowd control. First, we have Awe, or Intimidating Roar. We talked about this as we've taken this from the tree. It's got a 1-minute cooldown, and it's going to be stunning 8 nearby enemies for 6 seconds. Damage ends the effect prematurely, and targets affected by Awe deal 15% less melee and range damage for 10 seconds after the confounding effect ends. If they're immune to the damage, to the stun rather, the confounding effect will immediately suffer from this damage-reducing effect. Force Push. It's a 1-minute cooldown. It is a 10-meter range. It deals 8,137 to 8,987 kinetic damage, knocks the target back several meters, and knocks the target down for 2 seconds. Force Push immediately finishes the cooldown of Force Leap. Next we have Force Stasis, or Force Choke. Cooldown is 1 minute, roughly 56 seconds with 2100 alacrity. It is a 10-meter range. It is a 4-second stun. It deals 14,454 kinetic damage and builds 3 focus over the duration. We also have Hilt Bash / Backhand. It's a 1-minute cooldown, again 56 seconds roughly with the 2100 alacrity. It has a 4-meter range, a 4-second stun. It deals 10,259 to 11,071 kinetic damage. We also have a couple of interrupts. We have Force Leap or Force Charge. It's a 15-second cooldown, 14-second with 2100 alacrity, and less with the Battlefield Command perk that we've taken from the skill tree. This is a 10 to 30 meter range. It jumps to a distant target, dealing 4,809 damage with the main hand weapon, immobilizing the target for 2 seconds and interrupting the target's current action. Builds 3 focus, cannot be used against targets in cover. Force Kick or Disruption. It is a 12-second cooldown, it has a 4-meter range, and it kicks the target and interrupts its current action, preventing that ability from being used for 4 seconds. In total, you have 7 interrupts on the Jedi Guardian tank if you use Force Push after Force Leap to reset the Force Push cooldown, with this build taking Awe and everything we're taking. That's 7 total interrupts. That's a lot of interruptibility. Next, let's talk about some advanced maneuvers. First is the Circle of Shelter, the AoE rotation. This is consisting of Challenging Call into Threatening Focus, into Warding Strike, into Guardian Slash, into Cyclone Slash, into Force Sweep. The priority here is maintaining your Cyclone Slash while taking advantage of the group rotation. So this is a very powerful boiled down rotation to maintain your AoE effectiveness as a tank. Next, let's talk about guard swapping. Having alacrity helps drastically with guard swapping. That's why we're recommending the 2100 alacrity build here. We also would say that trying to predict the incoming damage or when the focus swaps is going to be very effective for your guard swapping, which means you're predicting the damage. You're looking ahead to see when the enemy team will be swapping from one target to the next so that your guard is already on the ally before the enemy is attacking them. That way you don't get stunned and locked out with no guard on somebody, which is the main strategy to defeat a good tank. One more thing to mention here is positioning. Try to stay positioned so your sweeping slash affects all enemies. Use your Guardian Leap to intercede to allies and gain range to leap and interrupt or push enemies into or away from the fight. It's very effective to separate a tank so their guard is out of range, or separate a healer so they cannot see their own team, line of sight, the healer. In cases where your team is mostly dealing cleave damage, aka AoE damage, which seems to be the current meta with most teams, you'll want to push the enemies into the group so that your team can take the most advantage of the cleave damage, so that you're assisting in maintaining the heightened damage on the enemy team. The last advanced maneuver we'll talk about is the stealth reveal. If you are sapped by a stealther and you get white barred, you can use your break free, then instantly use AoE taunt and threatening focus to reveal stealthers within the 30-meter taunt range.